Okay, thanks. So good afternoon, directors, guests, staff, and members of the public. I'm pleased to begin this inaugural meeting of the CVRD Board of Directors for November 15th, 2022. As this meeting gets underway, I would like to acknowledge that we are in the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. My name is James Warren, and as the Corporate Legislative Officer, I will call this inaugural meeting of the Comox Valley Regional District Board of Directors to order. So thank you to everybody for attending today's meeting. The first order of business at this inaugural board meeting is to conduct oaths of office for the Board of Directors. So I've handed out the oath to each director, and I will ask each director individually to solemnly affirm his or her oath. And we will begin with Director Arbour.
Thank you, James. I, Daniel Arbour, do solemnly affirm that I'm qualified to hold the office of Director for the Comox Valley Regional District, to which I have been elected. I have complied with the provisions of the Local Government Act in relation to my election to this office. I will abide by all rules related to conflicts of interest under the Community Charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions that I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful to others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration, and I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Director Arbour. And Director Will Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you. I, Will Cole-Hamilton, do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of Director for the Comox Valley Regional District, to which I have been appointed. I will abide by all rules related to conflicts of interest under the Community Charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions that I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful of others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration, and I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Director Cole-Hamilton. Director Ken Grant.
I, Ken Grant, do solemnly affirm I'm qualified to hold the office of Director for the Comox Valley Regional District, to which I have been appointed. I will abide by all the rules related to conflicts of interest under the Community Charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful to others, and I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration. I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Director. Director Edwin Grieve.
Thank you. I, Edwin Grieve, do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of Director of the Comox Valley Regional District, to which I have been elected. I've complied with the provisions of the Local Government Act in relation to my election to this office. I will abide by all rules related to conflicts of interest under the Community Charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. Will be accountable for the decisions that I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful of others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration, and I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Director. Director Richard Hardy.
I, Richard Hardy, do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of Director for the Comox Valley Regional District, to which I have been elected. I've complied with the provisions of the Local Government Act in relation to my election to this office. I will abide by all rules related to conflicts of interest under the Community Charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions that I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful of others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration, and I will perform my duties for my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Director. Director Doug Hillian.
Thank you, James. I, Doug Hillian, do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of Director for the Comox Valley Regional District, to which I have been appointed. I will abide by all the rules related to conflicts of interest under the Community Charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions that I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful of others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration. I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Director. Director Jonathan Kerr.
I, Jonathan Kerr, do solemnly affirm that I'm qualified to hold the office of Director for the Comox Valley Regional District to which I have been appointed. I will abide by all rules related to conflicts of interest under the community charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions that I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful of others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration. I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you. Director Jesse Kettler.
Thank you. I, Jesse Kettler, do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of Director of the Comox Valley Regional District to which I've been appointed. I will abide by all the rules related to conflict of interest under the community charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions that I make, the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful of others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration, and I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you. Director Melanie McCollum.
I, Melanie McCollum, do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of Director for the Comox Valley Regional District to which I have been appointed. I will abide by all rules related to conflicts of interest under the community charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions that I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful of others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration. I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Director. And Director Wendy Morin.
I, Wendy Morin, do solemnly affirm that I am qualified to hold the office of Director for the Comox Valley Regional District to which I have been appointed. I will abide by all rules related to conflicts of interest under the community charter. I will carry out my duties with integrity. I will be accountable for the decisions that I make and the actions that I take in the course of my duties. I will be respectful of others. I will demonstrate leadership and collaboration. I will perform the duties of my office in accordance with the law.
Thank you, Directors. The next order of business at this meeting is the election of the Chair and Vice Chair. I will begin by calling for nominations for the position of Chair. Any director may put forward another director's name. I will call for nominations 3 times, and at the close of nominations, I will ask each nominee in reverse order from which they were nominated if they will let their name stand for election. If more than one director is nominated, each candidate will have 3 minutes to make a campaign presentation. Following the speeches, I will ask that you print the last name of your selection for chair on the colored ballot in front of you using a pen. The ballots will be collected, and Lucy Wacharek, our Chief Financial Officer, Lisa Dennis, and myself will count the ballots, and I will then announce the results. If there are more than 2 candidates and no candidate receives a clear majority of votes on the first ballot, the candidate with the lowest number of votes will be removed from the ballot and the voting will be conducted again. This process will be used until there is 1 candidate who receives a clear majority of ballots cast. If there are 2 tie votes, the board will have to pass a resolution to either determine the election of chair by the drawing of lots or to start the election process over. The process for the election of the vice chair is the same as I've just described. However, candidates will be allowed just 2 minutes for their speech. Following the elections, I will ask for a resolution to destroy the ballots. Are there any questions on the election process at this time? Seeing none, I will call a first time for nominations for the position of chair of the Comox Valley Regional District Board of Directors. Director Morin.
I'd like to nominate Jesse Kettler.
Thank you. And Director Hardy.
I'd like to nominate Edwin Grieve.
Thank you. I'll call a second time for any nominations for chair. And we'll call a third and final time for any nominations for position of chair. And seeing none, I will ask Director Grieve, would you allow your name to stand for the election of chair? I will. Thank you. And Director Kettler, do you allow your name to stand for the position of chair?
I do.
Thank you. Then I will turn the floor over to Director Kettler for your 3-minute campaign speech.
Thank you, colleagues, and congratulations on your election and appointments to the board. Well, I think we experienced a term interrupted with COVID happening in the second year of the term, but we did quite well responding and adapting to the challenges of the day. However, there were a number of gaps in the system that were revealed. We need to beef up our emergency management services by making it a full service as opposed to contract. And I was happy to see the soft launch of the Neighborhood Emergency Preparedness Program and Guide last month. Initiatives like these are going to be very important to get us ready for what is to come, which we now know as climate chaos. We also had a few hiccups with our community partnerships pillar in regards to communications and helping nonprofits deliver vital frontline services. In the last couple of meetings before the election, we started to address the role that the CVRD plays as recipient and then distributor of grant funding from upper levels of government, and how there are ever increasing demands on the CVRD to do more administrative and planning work with these grants. I hope to further this discussion at strategic planning and help us build the social infrastructure we need to respond to the many overlapping crises that we are experiencing. How to best respond to some of the other challenges like supply chain disruptions and inflation are to relocalize as much as possible. This would include both food security and water security, which we do have some influence over. We already have some great initiatives happening like the Food Policy Council, the Food Hub, the Agricultural Plan, the Agricultural Watershed Plan, the Watershed Protection Plan, and Connected by Water, among others. And we can build on these to make our communities more self-reliant and more resilient. Continuing to strengthen our relationship with Comox First Nation and other Indigenous groups are vital to our success as the region as a whole. I would like to congratulate the Comox First Nation on the receipt of their land and cash offer, which is a major milestone on the path to becoming a self-governing treaty nation. There's a lot of work ahead of us all, as we will need to continue to collaborate on infrastructure and services to our communities. Finally, I would like to see us double down on our efforts to combat climate change. Looking around the table, it is clear with the directors that are here, the public has given us a mandate and they want to see climate action. We will have the opportunity to give this direction, both within strategic planning, but also with the update of the regional growth strategy. I hope that I have your support for chair for another year, and I will do my best to help guide the board as we move these initiatives forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And Director Grieve.
Thank you. In the heated parry and thrust of an election, politicians battle it out in public theater. In the end, there's hurt feelings, frayed nerves, and sometimes a sense of loss for friends and colleagues who don't return. But like Elizabeth May said, we fight like cats and dogs, but when it's over, we put it aside and we all sit at the committee table across from each other. We roll up our sleeves and we get to work because the people are depending on us. So here we are, all sitting across the table. I'd like to take this opportunity as well to thank everyone for coming back, and especially to welcome our 2 new directors, Dr. Jonathan Kerr from Comox and the Comox Valley's first Indigenous member, Richard Hardy, representing Area P. I'm running for chair because I want to see representation at the highest level for the 1/3 of the Comox Valley residents who don't live in Courtenay, Comox, or Cumberland. Municipalities have their own mayors, their own councils, their staff, and their CAOs, all with their own channels of access to higher government. The mayors and chairs have seats on boards like Island Coastal Economic Trust and participate in forums and workshops hosted by UBCM, AB, ICC, and others. These are all available to the 3 mayors. So where does that leave the rural areas? Well, if you're not a chair, you're not there. Not to say our municipal partners are tone deaf, but there is a very real cultural difference between urban and rural. And we bring a lot to the table. Area A, with its high assessed property values, pay more tax than the town of Comox. Area C has the fourth largest population of any jurisdiction north of Nanaimo. Agriculture is the Valley's #1 first dollar economic driver. Our shellfish industry is the biggest producer on the west coast of Canada. Mount Washington Resort brings in literally hundreds of thousands of people each year to visit. Even Cumberland's U-Rock ride their mountain bikes on trails that are in the RD. And thus, we all bring huge economic benefits to the rest of the valley. In the electoral areas, high-level leadership will be needed as we work through partnerships with Comox First Nations and secure the permitting and funding for things like South Sewer and the water conveyance projects. Also big on the rural agenda is the drafting of our new agricultural plan and the food hub and the regional growth strategy. Indigenous relations and reconciliation and local food security are core goals for the regional district. We need to start walking the walk, not just talking the talk. I ask for your support. I ask municipalities to make some room for your country cousins. We're all in this together. As they say, we're all in the same canoe. We better start paddling in the same direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. So directors, I'll now ask you to make your selection for the position of chair on one of the green ballots in front of you, and I'll come around and collect those ballots. So thank you, directors. Following the counting of the ballots, I'd like to announce that Director Kettler has been elected as chair of the Comox Valley Regional District. Second. Thank you. A motion to destroy the ballots. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. I'll now conduct the election for the position of vice chair. So I will ask for nominations for position of vice chair of the board. Director Grieve.
I want to nominate Richard Hardy for vice chair.
Thank you. And Director Arbor.
Thanks. I'd like to nominate Will Cole Hamilton.
Thank you. I'll call a second time for any nominations for vice chair. And I'll call a third and final time for any nominations for vice chair. So seeing no further nominations, Director Cole Hamilton, do you allow your name to stand for the election of vice chair? Thank you. And Director Hardy, do you allow your name to stand for the election of vice chair? Sure. Thank you. All right, then I will turn the floor over to Director Hardy for a 2-minute campaign presentation for the position of vice chair.
Just like speed dating. First, I'd like to say emo to Ed and Grieve for having the trust, confidence, and respect for supporting and support for nominating me for the position for vice chair for the Comox Valley Regional District Board. It is my understanding that Comox Valley Regional District has made a commitment to Indigenous communities and Indigenous people to reconciliation to further implement the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples. Many members of this new board, it could be argued the old board, have heard or may have read in papers or social media my comments that with reconciliation comes inclusion from the CVRD, but also from an Indigenous perspective, there's a need to participate in that inclusion. This, in my opinion, is further exemplified in Article 5 of UNDRIP, where it states the following: Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions, while retaining the right to participate fully, if they so choose, in the political, economic, social, and cultural life of the state. I have nearly 20 years of experience with dealing with local, provincial, and federal government agencies, bureaucrats, and politicians. My 6 of 8 years being on the executive board for the Comox Valley Economic Development Society, my 14 months on the board of the Comox Valley Airport Commission, and my 3 years on the board of the BC Shellfish Growers Association, and my nearly 4 years as a counselor for the Comox First Nation, where I hold the following portfolios: fiscal, forestry, fish, infrastructure, natural resources, and lands. But yet, what I've heard over the last week is that there are concerns that I may not fit the criteria for a vice chair. I am concerned about those that feedback based upon my experiences. What is further concerning about me throwing my hat into the arena as the vice chair is that there's been some criticism about me being a Comox First Nation member and counselor, and that my own reason for being an Area B director was to only look after the interests of the Comox First Nation, that I had no desire to look after the interests of the constituents of Area B. I find this mentality to be divisive and racist, and again, not in touch with several articles of UNDRIP, most notably Article 5. What I would like to bring to the attention of the board here is that on November the 6th, I did meet with nearly 70 people at the end of the cul-de-sac on Hector Road to listen to their concerns and issues about the town of Comox annexing Area B properties without consultation with them. And their further concerns with regards to the destruction of a very quiet, safe, and environmentally safe, sensitive neighborhood. Additionally, they had concerns with potentially 2,000 new residents impacting the already declining human infrastructure, such as public health and safety, workers, and schools. I know my time is limited, so I won't discuss in detail the concerns that have been put forward to me already with regards to the liquid waste management plan and the sewer line that will be going underneath people's properties, wells, and only 30 feet above an aquifer. Or the discussions that I've had with a number of folks with regards to the 5G TELUS towers, most notably on Thursday at the elementary school at airport. I bring these details to you because, again, I want folks to recognize the fact that I do care about the constituents in Area B, and that the Comox First Nation is also a part of Area B. Again, in closing, my 20 years of experience of dealing with local, provincial, federal government agencies, and my experiences as a counselor for the Comox First Nation, I hope that I will be seriously considered for the vice chair position for the Comox Valley Regional District. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And Director Cole Hamilton.
Thank you very much, and thank you, board. I believe that as vice chair, my skills as a collaborator and team builder would contribute to the CVRD's work this term. I have a strong track record of collaboration, looking to build bridges and finding common ground, which have been strengthened by the roles I've taken on as an elected official. Over the course of the last 4 years, as chair of Help Cities Lead, I led a team which received endorsements from 37 local governments ranging from Kitimat to Metro Vancouver, as well as a resolution endorsed by the executive of UBCM, which led the provincial government to include in the roadmap to 2030 a commitment to developing a PACE loan program for communities across BC. Additionally, as a member, director, vice chair, and now chair of Climate Caucus, I've helped to build it in less than 4 years from a good idea to a national network of over 500 elected officials in every province and territory, operating in both official languages with full-time staff. And more recently, I was appointed by the president of FCM in recognition of that work to serve on FCM's Committee of the Whole. I also have a strong grounding in the work that we'll be doing this term, having served on the TAC PAC for the sewer conveyance. I was part of a year-long process that developed the original plan from scratch. Further, during this term, Comox Strathcona Waste Management will be developing a new waste management plan. Anyone who's served with me on that board knows that I've taken a leadership role, bringing forward deconstruction and ensuring that we have a plan to manage the GHG's emissions from our sites. It's been suggested that if the chair and vice chair were both from municipalities, that electoral area matters would not be adequately represented. In the past term, the major projects of the CVRD were in water and sewer. Neither the chair nor the vice chair sat on water or sewer during the last term, and this had no negative impact on these highly successful projects. CVRD has robust internal communications and dedicated staff who ensured that the chair and vice chair were well briefed and effective, and the results speak for themselves. I appreciate you hearing my thoughts and considering me as a candidate for vice chair, and I ask for your support.
Thank you, Director. So Directors, I'll now ask that you mark your selection for vice chair on the ballot, and we'll collect and count. So Directors, following the count of the election for vice chair, I'd like to announce that Director Cole Hamilton has been elected as vice chair of the Comox Valley Regional District. I would ask for a motion to destroy the ballots, please. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Was there discussion? No. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. So I will now turn the floor over to Chair Kettler to carry on the rest of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you all for your support, and thank you to Director Grieve and Director Hardy for putting your names forward. I'm honored to serve you as chair for another year. I would like to commit to meeting on a weekly basis with the chair of the Electoral Area Service Committee. I feel this will serve to ensure a smooth flow of information between ESIC and the full board. We have two new directors, as was mentioned, and I would like to welcome them. Jonathan Kerr from the town of Comox, and Richard Hardy for Area B, Lazo North. And as was also mentioned, Director Hardy is a counselor for the Comox First Nation. And the Regional District Board is a different structure than our regular councils. And so it does take some getting used to. And I encourage you to ask any questions, or if you need any guidance, I'm here and staff are here. And we're happy to have you both join us, and we look forward to working with you both. On a more somber note, I would like to address the passing of Mayor Russ Harnott last week. And I would like to take a minute of silence to honor him and his contribution to our community. And I'd like to do that now. Thank you. Thank you. We hold his loved ones in our thoughts. Now we must continue with our duties of office. And it has already been done by staff, but I would like to again acknowledge that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, the original keepers of this land. We are grateful for their stewardship since time immemorial. So now we move on to the in-camera motion. Sorry, before we do that, staff have something to say about it.
Yep, Madam Chair, the two items to be considered on the in-camera are not urgent and could be delayed a week. Madam Chair came forward and mentioned that with applicants' portfolios or profiles being provided, perhaps the extra week will benefit you for the decisions that have to be made with respect to the appointment. So my suggestion is to not conduct the in-camera meeting tonight, but refer that, a motion to refer that agenda to next Tuesday.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Next, we're on to adoption of minutes from September 20th. Cole, Hamilton, and Arbor, thank you. Any discussion around those minutes? Okay, all in favor of adoption? Any opposed? That's carried. We're on to reports. We have the Comox Valley Regional District local government election results. Thank you. And does staff want to discuss the results, or is they just provided for us?
It's what got you here, and it's just a matter of the Local Government Act being providing these results for you. They explain themselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Director Arbor.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank our staff for running the election for the school district and the Allen Trust as well. We saw 2 new trustees on Denman and continuation of the 2 past trustee on Hornby. And I've got a new colleague for school district in Area A that I'm excited to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to join in welcoming Directors Kerr and Director Hardy to the board. In particular, I want to acknowledge the Director Hardy's election to the board as a historic occasion, and gives us a unique opportunity to work together on the mutual interests of the Comox Nation and the other local governments in the community. And I look forward to our time on this board together. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Okay. So all in favor of receipt of election of results? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And we're on to the CVRD board orientation. Arbor and Cole Hamilton, thank you.
There's 6 of us though, so it's 3 slides each. How's that? Chair, directors, and members of the public. My name is Russell Tyson, the CAO of the Comox Valley Regional District. And one of the duties of your CAO is to work with his staff to bring forward orientation for the new board. And while there is not too much change at this board with just 2 additional members, we are a complex organization that has other duties and responsibilities. And I think that you will see major change when it comes to the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District and Solid Waste Management Board. So the orientation package that we will unveil for you in the next few months will be fulsome and will include our collaboration with the directors that are part of those boards, as well as North Island 911. Tonight, though, is just a brief refresher. I'll talk to you a little bit about the regional district format and the services that this CVRD, the Comox Valley Regional District, provides. Each one of our general managers will then just provide you the briefest of outlines of what is happening within their branches. And in the absence of Jake Martins, who is ill tonight, James Warren will help to just talk a little bit about our governing bylaws, voting procedures, and some of the upcoming meetings. So if you'll bear with me, here is an introduction to regional districts in the Comox Valley. So let's begin by taking a look at a regional district. Regional districts are unique. There are only 27 of them in the entire world. It is the form that was established in the province of BC in the 1960s to do a number of different things as illustrated in this pie graph. Really, there are 4 services that regional district provides. First and foremost, it is the service provider, as some of the electoral area directors have mentioned, for the rural areas. Those areas of the province that are not incorporated, the regional district provides a means providing the basics of services, streetlights, water systems, sewer systems, community planning, and other things for the electoral areas that do not have municipal representation. But in the 1960s, it was also recognized that there were services that it would be better if there was an opportunity for municipalities in rural areas to share. So regional districts provide that opportunity to come together on a regional basis to provide services across the region. And each regional district is unique in the way that they've developed this. But in our case here in the Comox Valley, with 3 municipalities and 3 electoral areas in close proximity, we provide a lot of these regional services. They're things like recreation, our pools, and our ice rinks. They are the water systems, that is the systems of treating water for the municipalities. It was all decided by local politicians of the past that it would be better if we came together and not do these as individual services, but as a collaborative. So regional districts provide services to the rural areas. They provide opportunities for shared services amongst the region. But as demands grew and populations grew and interest in broader services and broader service delivery developed across the province, the opportunity also came for shared services across regional boundaries. Now, we happen to share some of our services with the Strathcona Regional District. That is a little unique because it happened as a result of a divorce, separation. But it was decided by the province that we would continue to collaborate on those services. But another example is the North Island 911 Corporation. It is a service where 6 regional districts came together to establish a corporation for the delivery of 911 services in the North Island. These types of services across regional boundaries are being developed and being implemented across the province. So it's the 3rd role of regional districts. And then finally, it's regional interests. It's regional partners, the municipalities and electoral areas getting together and lobbying senior levels of government for your regional interests. By nature of politicians being at the table and thinking regionally, the 4th sort of unofficial purpose of regional districts is for you to get together to promote the interests of you as a region to provincial and federal agencies to ensure that their policies, their procedures, and the programs that they implement represent and respect the interests of you as a region. So basically, those are the sort of 4 unique services that regional districts provide across the province. As I mentioned, there's only 27 in the world. And as each regional district establishes its own services, everyone is unique. No 2 regional districts provide the same level of services or the same types of services. In our case, we provide between 98 and over 100 services. It changes as you come together and amalgamate some services, some such as your water services, bringing several together as one to reduce the amount of services that you provide. Or in some cases where you create new services or you inherit improvement districts and other services. So over the years, our total number of services has been varying in recent times, but it's in and around the 100 realm. And those services can be grouped into broad areas. There's really 8 broad areas of services that you have. There's the finance and administration that is provided to all. It is the accounting of meetings, agendas, minutes, the processing of decisions. It's also our financial obligations that we must live up to the province to provide sound financial planning and financially audited statements. Then there are the hard services. There's the water supply, the treatment of water for the municipalities of Comox and Courtenay and the surrounding rural areas. There's recreation, as I spoke to before, provided across the entire region. It is our swimming pools, our ice rinks, and the programs that are provided in association with those facilities. It's regional sustainability. Not every regional district has a regional growth strategy. And that provides a layer of policy and procedures with respect to how we oversee land use development across the municipalities and the rural areas, but also how we promote response to issues in the community, such as poverty reduction, housing, and other matters. Sewage treatment. Early on in the needs for better forms of sewage treatment, Comox and Courtenay got together and rather than going it alone, came to a regional solution for sewage treatment. In recent years, you, the board, have decided to expand that service and to look at a collaboration with electoral areas and Comox First Nation. Regional emergency services includes individual fire departments that we provide to the rural areas, Oyster River, Denman Island, Hornby as some of the examples, but it is also what the chair spoke to previously, the emergency program, where the 3 electoral areas provide emergency services to the rural areas, and by contract, we provide the same level of service to the municipalities. It is what established an EOC, an Emergency Operations Center, during the pandemic that brought municipal staff together to advise the policy and decision makers of the municipalities and the regional districts as to how we should respond and support the province in the response to the pandemic. Transportation. Our regional transit service is a regional service that the electoral areas and municipalities participate in. And then finally, there are the electoral area services. As I described, one of the first purposes of regional district to provide services to those electoral areas. Now, when we look at, when we look at our services and those 98, this is generally how they are distributed. As you can see, our electoral areas, Area A has 65 services, Area B 50, Area C 49. Principally, a lot of our services are provided to electoral areas. And this regional district has done something unique in which sub-electoral area services are provided. Knowing the uniqueness of Denman and Hornby Islands, some of the services that we've provided, such as economic development to Hornby, have been established for those rural areas, not across the entire electoral area. So one of the reasons that we have a few more services in electoral area A is providing that level of service and the unique service delivery to the islands. The municipalities, town of Comox, 22 services we provide to them, city of Courtenay, 23, and the village of Cumberland, 18. But the CVRD is a complex regional district and a bit unique. As I mentioned, 10 or 12 years ago, the province determined that the Comox-Strathcona Regional District, providing services over to a broad regional area, would be separated into 2 separate functions, or 2 separate regional districts, Strathcona and Comox Valley. But it was determined at the time that solid waste would continue to be planned and developed as a collaboration of the 2 regional districts. So the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board is a unique 23-member board that provides direction on solid waste for us, that you collaborate with Strathcona Regional District. And the Comox Valley Regional Hospital, Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District, a separate and distinct corporation provided to the Comox Strathcona area, the same service area basically as solid waste, was decided to keep or retain as that function. And then, as I mentioned previously, the North Island 911 Corporation is administered by the regional district under contract to the corporation. The corporation being the founding 6 regional districts: Catet, Mount Waddington, Strathcona, Comox Valley, the northern portion of the regional district of Nanaimo, the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District. In recent years, the service has been expanded to provide the service by contract for fire dispatch to the the Cowichan Valley Regional District, the other CVRD, and to the Peace River Regional District. And then this regional district has established various levels of administrative direction in terms of assigning duties to manage the administration of your water, recreation, and sewer to commissions. So separate bodies, delegated authority with the exception of the establishment of financial plans and bylaw making. Those authorities appointed by this body or the municipalities administer the functions of recreation, water, and sewage distinct from this board. And then a new service to be established in time, established by bylaw just this year, is the Regional Parks and Trails Service. As with other municipal organizations, it's sometimes referred to as the one employee model. So what is the one employee model? Your CAO is your one employee. The board is responsible for developing policy and then directs that the CAO through the staff and various departments that are established to provide the services and the oversight of the maintenance and operation of the services that you develop. In order for this model to function and for you to have the information that you have, we have these meetings, we have staff reports, we have recommendations. But beyond that, we have a series of actions that we take to keep you informed. The CAO and key members of staff meet with the chair and vice chair of every single commission and committee and this board in advance of every meeting. So the establishment of the agendas reflects the input of the chair and vice chair. We key staff meet with the board in restricted in camera every second month. Those are to provide you more updates and respond to your questions with respect to the actions and activities, but more information with respect to where we are at with personnel levels and such. The CAO is available to all directors and provides access to staff to respond to your questions. The CAO is available to municipal councils for updates and feedbacks, whether it's presentations to council or otherwise. And I also facilitate the municipal engagement through our advisory committees where transit, solid waste, water, and sewer, all the reports that come before the various commissions and reports are vetted by municipal staff to ensure that the interests of municipalities are reflected and they are kept up to date with respect to the recommendations that are going before the board for the services that we provide to municipalities. Our core values: collaboration, service, sustainability, and accountability. It goes without saying that we are here to provide services to the residents of the Comox Valley in a quality and affordable basis. Collaboration across our organization, across our services and departments, we break down silos and ensure that we are working together and collaboratively to come up with recommendations. We're committed to working with our municipal stakeholders, the staff of the various municipalities, and the recommendations that we bring forward for the services that we provide to the municipalities are reflected with their input. Sustainability has been at the forefront of the drivers that this board has set for us. It's always on our mind with respect to the services that we provide, not only as to the response to the environment and climate change, but financial sustainability. And of course, we're accountable. We're accountable given the requirements of the Local Government Act, the various provisions that are provided, the various agencies that we have to respond to, and to ensure that the public knows that they can access information and understand the decisions that are made at the regional district. And before we just take a dive into the various branches, and I have the general managers provide you an update, I just want to emphasize that this regional district is doing a lot with respect to the services and has a lot on the go. Some of these are significant projects that will require a lot of engagement with the public. As you're aware, through a series of open houses that we've conducted over the last couple of weeks, We are proceeding with a sewer conveyance project that will see the installation of a brand new sewer conveyance along Dyke Road through the town of Comox, tunneled through Lazo Hill to the Brent Road Treatment Facility. On organics implementation, it's been a long time in coming, but in January of 2023, we will have the facilities to process organics from our 5 municipalities, major municipalities that participate in the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service, those being Campbell River, Comox, Courtney, and Cumberland. This will include a transfer station here at our Comox Valley Waste Management Center, and the processing of all organics and the sale of those products to the general public from our facility in Campbell River. We are proceeding with an agriculture plan and a food hub study. Staff of the municipalities are working with staff of the regional district to come forward with recommendations for the scope of a regional growth strategy review, something that was foremost in the past regional districts directors' minds and priorities. We are continuing with developing the concepts of Southern Service Delivery, where we are working in collaboration with Comox First Nation for the implementation of services, water and sewer to the treaty settlement lands in collaboration with the rural areas that require those same services. And that includes a liquid waste management plan to ensure that the permissions are provided to provide those services to the electoral areas. We are undertaking a solid waste management plan review for the solid waste service that is underway at this time, and we will be updating the solid waste management board shortly on that. At the direction of this board several months ago, our corporate energy and emissions planning is proceeding, whereby we will report back out on the financial plan for each one of our services, how we may respond to your desire to receive 50% reduction by 2030. We are coming forward with a recreation facility strategic planning session for the Rec Commission. This is on the basis of 3 studies that have been done this year to take a look at field study, where we might provide new fields for the community, our pool study, where we look at the future of our existing pools and the need for additional facilities, if any, and where those might take place, as well as our ice rinks and what requirements there may be. We'll bring these together to the Rec Commission for them to set forward the foundation of a capital plan in the next few years to respond to those needs. We continue to respond to coastal flood adaptation through our electoral area services planning. Comox Valley Health Services Hub, an initiative of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District. This would see collaboration with Island Health by bringing their facilities and services to a centralized facility within the Comox Valley that would be built and managed and operated by the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District. At the same time, the hospital district is working with the province, working through the process of getting a business plan adopted by the province to see 150 long-term care beds built in the Campbell River area. The emergency program reform is twofold, as Chair Kettler mentioned, looking at bringing forth the municipalities and electoral areas working in a regional service. But we are also well aware that the province is going to be implementing new reforms to the Emergency Program Act. Those are likely due in the spring of 2023. And then finally, on the heels of the regional parks service being adopted in the bylaws, we will be undertaking a regional park strategy. So just some of the major projects that we have on the go over the next series of months through financial planning and orientation. We will dive into the details of these projects and many more that we will be delivering for the community. With that, I would like to pass it on to Doug DeMarzo to talk about community services, and then he will subsequently introduce the other general managers to review their services.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Russell. Through the CIOs to the chair, I'm excited to announce I'm Doug DeMarzo here, Community Services General Manager. As you can see behind me, I have a number of services that I deliver with the help of my staff and through direction from this board and the Rec Commission, and soon to be the Parks and Trails Committee. Of importance in recreation is we've
taken a long look at our life cycles, our asset management, and our level of service over the last few years. And we look forward to coming in the future months with a recreation strategic planning session that will help meet our customer expectations as we move forward with this service. We also look after the agricultural grounds, and we look forward to this community again, utilizing those grounds. We've seen an excellent bounce back the last couple of years after COVID. We weren't expecting the return of numbers, so we've seen good revenue and good community support for the services we offer in our centers. With parks, we've looked at the regional park service implementation that Russell's touched on. One of the key factors as we move forward with that strategic planning session is to understand the traditionally the electoral area community parks, 60 of them, and 25 managed beach accesses have often been thought of as regional parks. So it'll be moving forward with the public to understand the difference in the strategic planning between that park system and what the regional park system is for this board. So we look forward to those conversations in the community. From emergency services, we continue to deliver the service. We're focused on readying and training our EOC to provide assistance to our community in emergencies. With the support of our emergency support services volunteers and our shortwave radio operators, and many of the nonprofit groups in the community all come together when this community is in a time of need. And we appreciate that support, and we need to be ready and prepared to act. At fire and during fires, we move forward with mutual aid agreements with the municipalities and improvement districts to help deliver those operational services. And from an electoral areas perspective, we're looking at the Mount Washington Fire Building being constructed. We're looking at improvements to the Union Bay Fire Halls and how they deliver services in Union Bay. Most importantly, we're confirming our strategic approach to support all the halls, and the delivery of prevention services is always and consistently being looked at. And some examples of that are partnerships with both through FireSmart and as well as our partnerships with KFN. Community halls have recently come to the forefront with establishment of a service in the rural areas. Community halls definitely provide a vital role for aging in place, and as importantly for celebrations and bringing the community together. We'll continue to support community halls as they play within that recreation cycle of serving the whole community as well. We look at rural arts and community cultural grants. And coming out of COVID, I think we'll be seeing some additional requests. However, most organizations are showing great flexibility in delivering their programs. Within the rural communities, there's also excellent sources of funding for organizations that do not typically fit into services. And in some instances, these have even morphed into services such as community hall service, which was recently established, as well as a mosquito service. One interesting other grant service the Recreation Commission will look at this year is the continuous and expansion partnership delivery provided through recreation grants. It should be noted that a major driver here in support of this grant was originally the Courtney Outdoor Pool, which is also wrapped up in the original need for the aquatic service study referred to earlier. So it'll all be coming together as one picture. We also provide a whole host of other island services, as well as other grant services such as search and rescue related to delivering our services and community service. Overall, it's a broad portfolio. We enjoy serving this community and look forward to continuing to serve this community. At this point, I'll pass it over to Lucy from Finance.
I think Director Erber has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I guess questions are allowed. So I just have a question. During the break, the last couple of months, I did notice the municipalities were asked for appointments to the Regional Parks and Trail Committee, but I don't think the EAs have seen anything. So I'm just wondering if the intent is to also have the EAs, each of the EAs participate, or just the chair, or what the plan is in regards to the committee.
EA directors are automatically on the committee. They represent their electoral areas, whereas municipalities, we need them to appoint because they don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think each of the municipalities have already done their appointments to that committee. Yeah.
Go ahead, Lucy. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. and good evening, board members. I am Lucy Wacherik, your Chief Financial Officer. Our branch is financial services, and these are the main areas of our responsibility. To get through budget and planning cycles for 2023, you will be seeing a lot of the finance team starting mid-January. Legislation does require the board to adopt a 2023 budget and 5-year plan by the end of March. Financial services brings together these various budgets and prepares those short and long-term plans. Financial services manages cash, deposits, the disbursements, and we ensure a good system of controls are in place to protect multiple types of funds and other CVRD assets. We have a broad range of financial reporting, including internal and external, and of course, having our external audit done every year and presenting financial statements to the board. We manage CVRD investments, approximately 45 million, and oversee planning for drawing debt funds, for the most part for our capital projects. The procurement of goods and service is handled by one of our 3 departments, and this must occur in compliance with some strict regulations and laws for public procurement. The insurance program is managed in our unit, and our team will be developing other elements of enterprise risk management. As one of our highest priorities for 2023, we will work on coordinating initiatives within the asset management program and developing necessary standards and policies. Other priorities include the CVRD carbon emissions and energy program and its integration into budgets, finding efficiencies, automating process, bettering budget process, and this includes increasing public engagement into budgets, and developing a fiscal sustainability framework. And with that, I'll forward it along to our GM of Planning and Development Services, Helena.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Through Madam Chair to the directors, thank you very much for all coming back to this table. I'm very lucky. My name is Alana Mullally, and I get to be the General Manager of the Planning and Development Services branch here at the Comox Valley. Similar to Doug, I'm also really lucky to have a really broad portfolio with a lot of great staff. So our big picture issues, our big picture services, our regional growth strategy. Those of you who've been at this table certainly know that that is a service that includes all 3 municipalities and all 3 of the electoral areas, save for Denman and Hornby Islands. We provide, I should read my notes. A couple of times tonight, you've heard reference to a possible update of the regional growth strategy. This is a big project for us, for you, that will require really concerted collaboration and teamwork across the Federation. As Russell noted, we're scoping critical issues right now, trying to create those strong ties between local area planning that we do in the rural areas and that your staff too in the municipalities, and with that regional big picture. We'll be coming to you early-ish in the term to give you some options and presenting you with a decision point, whether or not to undertake that review. We also, sort of under this umbrella, we do a lot of work in the homelessness and support service. That's something you'll be hearing a little bit about more tonight with a staff report that's included later on the agenda. And that is a service that includes Courtenay and Cumberland, the electoral areas, save for Denman and Hornby. We also are lucky to work on electoral area land use planning, and this includes both long-range planning in the rural areas as well as development application planning. Many of you will have picked up on that reference to the agricultural plan work that we've been working on over the last many months and will continue into 2023. It's a big project for our group. We've also recently completed coastal flood mapping in the rural areas, and we mapped all of the municipal areas too, because it just seemed like the right thing to do when you're talking about a hazard such as erosion caused by coastal flooding. We are continually working on implementation of our housing needs assessment, knowing that our main opportunities in the rural areas to address affordability or to improve affordability in the rural areas is through infill and through the provision of secondary suites. We also spend a lot of time working on some very complex development applications in 2 of our settlement nodes, being Saratoga and Union Bay. And all of this work requires concerted coordination with our engineering and community services colleagues. We also provide building inspection. We do this in two ways. We provide it through service establishment in the rural areas, and we provide building inspection service to the village of Cumberland via service agreement. This is an arena or a field that's attracting a lot of attention right now. Many of you will be familiar with the provincial development approval process review, and we're doing a little bit of that in our own house to get our own house in order around both our building inspection. People are concerned with timelines, people are concerned with affordability, and how does our service play into our community's experience. So that's a big project for us in this year ahead. We also deliver transit service in this branch. As you'll know, the service itself is delivered by BC Transit. So we work closely with our colleagues in BC Transit and with our colleagues in the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. In 2022, the Transit Future Action Plan for our community was completed. We still have some transit infrastructure study work that's underway. And again, collaboration is key to this service. Collaboration with municipal partners, with the province, and with BC Transit. And we do, you might recall hearing Russell mention the Transit Management Advisory Committee, and that's where we touch in with your staff on a regular basis to ensure that we're delivering a service in a way that makes good sense for our residents and for their pocketbooks. I skipped over bylaw compliance there. This is another important service that we provide in the rural areas, enforcing the bylaws that we have established and working with you when we need to, looking for direction, and certainly any time that we're pursuing legal advice, we're working closely with our electoral area directors to secure that approval. Ultimately, our work is wholly informed by your strategic drivers and your strategic priorities. So to that end, we are here to provide electoral area supports and services such as street lighting, in addition to those that I've mentioned, street lighting and heritage conservation services. We are public service oriented. This is very much a front-facing branch. We get to work directly with our public every day, learning from them, understanding their priorities and their aspirations, and being responsive to those needs. Our work is wholly centered on fostering collaboration on regional initiatives. This is really key and is really ultimately key to the success of our work and in our ability to deliver on your priorities. We're building staff-to-staff relationships, sharing resources, and efforts to respond to some of those wicked problems that transcend our jurisdictional boundaries, some of which you've mentioned tonight. Those require ongoing work as a federation. So those issues that require ongoing work as a federation and with provincial ministries, and supporting our region's residents through programs such as delivering Clean BC fuel switching rebates, wood smoke reduction rebates, delivering on active transportation, and overall GHG emissions reductions work. Yeah, and Russell just mentioned the corporate energy and emissions plan. This is an important body of work where we are working to help, again, advance your strategic priorities to reduce our emissions and our energy use as an organization, to deliver on provincial requirements. And we're working closely with all departments to chart a plan for how we're going to do that. Thank you very much. I'd like now to introduce Mr. Mark Rutten, who's our General Manager of Engineering Services.
Okay, while he makes his way to the mic, Director Arbour has another question.
No, it's free. Oh, other directors have questions, but because the ESC is not meeting for another 3 weeks, I was just wondering the hot issue this summer and going into the fall was the pace of our building permits. So I'm wondering if tonight you could just give a few words as to how whether we're making progress on catching up, and whether some of the steps we've implemented are showing success, or if we're going to have more bad news in 3 weeks from now.
Through Madam Chair, I've said this before and I'll say it now. We are really committed to making improvements, and the areas that we need to make improvements, where we're going to really make an impact on our building turnaround times, is in introducing some systems and procedures that we haven't had. And I also want to reiterate that we're not alone in this. This is something that's happening right across the province for myriad reasons. So yes, we have made improvements, certainly, in working through our backlog. We've seen a slowdown, frankly, in applications, and I think that's influenced by a number of factors. So to be honest, that's helped out a little bit. We have a full complement right now of staff. We've got a posting out for another building official, which hopefully we will be able to attract someone. We have made improvements, for example, in the area of priority sorting. So triaging applications, which ones can we bang through really quickly? Straightforward applications, whether they're straightforward because they're very minor works or because they involve the oversight of third parties such as engineers and architects. We've made grounds on that. We've also really firmed up our intake. So, we used to try to help folks out, right? Take applications that maybe folks were still working on, they were still putting the pieces together, but we've had to stop doing that. We've had to draw that line in the sand to say that we can only accept complete applications. So we will be reporting back to the EA directors in January. That's our goal. And we expect to be able to show you some of these improvements and talk about some other things that we want to do in 2023 to continue that improved service delivery and get your feedback.
Thanks, Lana. I don't see any further questions, so go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Lana. My name is Mark Rutten. I'm the General Manager of Engineering Services. The Engineering Services Department is responsible for essentially 4 sub-departments: water services, sewer, the waste management service, and liquid waste management planning in the rural areas. So touching on each of these, the water department is responsible for the operation and maintenance of the Comox Valley water system, which is the regional bulk water system that provides water to Courtenay, Comox, and several local service areas. The service provides safe drinking water to about 50,000 people. And as most of you know, has greatly benefited from a new water treatment plant, which was commissioned in 2021. The department also looks after a Black Creek Oyster Bay water system in the north that serves 2,500 people with its own source water, mainly from groundwater, but also with some surface water added. It also looks after the Royston Water Service just south of Courtenay that also serves about 2,500 people and buys its water from the village of Cumberland for redistribution in Royston. It also looks after the Union Bay Water Service, which it just took over in 2020. It was an improvement district, and that serves about 1,200 people. And then in addition, the department is also responsible for a very small service on Denman Island that serves about 40 people and buys its water from the Graham Lake Improvement District on Denman. And there's work to convert that improvement district to a regional district service, which could happen soon. And even though that's a very small service, it still needs to meet all of the same safe water drinking requirements that the rest of the services do. And so there's some significant improvements planned for that service. Under sewer, the department is responsible for the Comox Valley Water Pollution Control Center, which is a wastewater treatment plant constructed in the early 80s for Courtenay and Comox. It serves about 40,000 people. And that service area was expanded in 2022 to now include a defined portion of Area A, which will be a huge benefit in terms of environmental controls for that area. The department also looks after the Jackson Drive sewer service, which is a very small service for a rural area along Jackson Drive with its own small treatment plant. And the King Coho service, another small treatment plant for the King Coho development. On solid waste, the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service is a unique service, as Russell mentioned, that covers both regional districts and serves 8 municipalities and 7 electoral areas. And all business for this service is managed by a separate board. That service has completed significant capital infrastructure improvements over the past several years and has taken huge steps forward in environmental management and control. And that service is also just now embarking on an update of its solid waste management plan. And then finally, the liquid waste management planning and rainwater management. This service works to investigate and identify solutions for rural liquid waste management and education for rural residents. In recent years, there's been an increased focus on flooding. And and work to implement best practices for managing rainwater. Areas of critical importance for the engineering service are the sewer conveyance project, which Russell mentioned. So construction of a new Courtney pump station and a new force main to the treatment plant. Construction is planned to begin in 2023 and take approximately 18 to 24 months. There's significant consultation and communication with multiple stakeholders, including Comox First Nation for this project. There's expected to be significant traffic implications, which we're working to mitigate and communicate with the community. And we're also working really closely with the town of Comox as this project cuts right through their core, and we're working together to deliver several improvements as part of the project. Another major initiative for the department is the South Sewer project. We're working in partnership with Comox First Nation to resolve failing septic system issues in the area and provide wastewater capacity for future treaty settlement lands. And we're facilitating this project by working on a liquid waste management plan addendum, which we're consulting with the community for and we'll bring forward to as part of the core area liquid waste management plan. So key focus for the branch is to continue to provide excellent customer service for water and sewer and the successful delivery of several key projects. Thank you. Now I'll turn it over to James Warren, our Deputy CAO.
Thanks, Mark, and good evening, directors again. My name is James Warren. I'm Deputy CAO with the CVRD, and I have responsibility for two primary portfolios and then a few other components. So mostly responsible for human resources and communications, but as well responding to with my team and also others in the organization, CAO inquiries, labor relations, media relations, payroll and benefits, public education, risk management, safety around occupational health and safety for our workers, and strategic planning. 2 points to note. Next week on November 22nd, there will be a presentation from Jennifer Steele, our manager of corporate communications, on social media, media relations, and communications in general. And then on December 6th, I'll be presenting a report to the board on human resources and staffing position proposals and service levels and costs. So there will be much more information to come at subsequent board meetings. And now moving on to corporate services. So Jake Martins is our general manager of corporate services, and as Russell mentioned, he's ill today, so unable to make it. So I will just briefly touch on his branch. As you can see, legislative services, administrative services, information systems, and GIS are the primary areas of responsibility. And that's very much in a support services role. There's a lot of support activities that go on for the regional district for the front-facing services that the public most often sees. Corporate services is one of the backbones for those front-facing services. Jake's team, Lisa included at the table here, provides extensive support to the board for the meetings and committee procedures. At the front info center, when you come into our building, the staff there are part of the administrative services and will assist with requests for information, freedom of information, processing, that sort of thing.
James, we do have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Go ahead, Director Moore. Oh, okay. We don't have a question. Continue. Thanks.
That was an easy one then. Thank you. And then lastly, information systems and GIS. This is the IT infrastructure that the regional district needs to be able to deliver the sort of services that we do. And of course, the spatial mapping that's used in many of our services, from water and sewer to land use planning. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about some procedural elements, and I'll go through these fairly quickly. So the directors who have been here before, this is all information you've heard before. To the new directors, we're more than happy to dive deep into the procedures and process of regional districts. I think Russell mentioned that there's only 27 regional districts in the entire world, and every one is unique. So it really is a unique beast, and I'll touch on a couple of those different pieces here. In 2023, there will be a number of committees and a calendar that'll be coming out. I'll talk about that in a second. The various committees that the regional district can set up are established either through legislation by bylaw or through standing committees that are appointed by the chair, and also as select committees. Then those are done by board resolution. So there's a variety of ways committees can be established. We tend to have terms of reference for each of our committees that will identify the purpose and scope, meeting frequency. So a letter that'll be coming from the chair shortly will describe what those committees are for the coming year. Russell's mentioned a couple of the different services that we have committees and commissions for, and they're just named on the sheet here. So the Comox Valley Water Committee, the Sewage Commission, the Recreation Commission, and the newly minted Regional Parks Committee. Those are all established by bylaw, and they will be part of the letter that Chair Keller will be looking at, I think, in the coming days here. Lastly, on this slide, the external organizations to which the board may make appointments. Some of the appointments that the board's asked to make are embedded in legislation. Others are more optional. And so you'll see from time to time requests on board agendas, including today, some of the different organizations that the board considers those appointments to. There is a board policy. We've got several board policies, all of which are online. There's a board policy that guides some of that appointment process as well. I mentioned the meeting schedule for 2023. This is one of the most challenging exercises that we need to undertake, because we have to work with about 7 different municipality council schedules, statutory holidays, regular meeting activities, an FCM, a UBCM, an AVICC, many different calendar commitments throughout the year, and come up with a schedule that will work for the regional district and the many board and committee meetings that we have here. Also working with the Strathcona Regional District for all of their meetings. So it's a challenging exercise to put together that schedule. Lisa and her team have once again done an outstanding job to make a proposal, and we'll meet with the chair shortly to have that discussion. The schedule for the rest of this year is already set, and then for 2023 we'll see that coming out soon. Just a note on committee recommendations are considered at following board meetings. So some of our committees have delegated authority. The Water Committee, the Sewage Commission, those bodies have delegated authority where the operation and administration of those services can be decided upon at the committee level. In other cases, committee recommendations have to be considered by the board and approved by the board. So the Electoral Areas Services Committee, as an example, does not have delegated authority. And so any decisions that are made at that committee come to a subsequent board meeting for ratification or consideration of ratification. So you'll see on our agendas, oftentimes there are minutes coming out of committee meetings and then recommendations coming from those minutes. A comment on the alternate director role. Every director here has an alternate, whether it be through municipal appointment or by the electoral area director themselves.
Yeah, I think there is a question
Director
this
Arbor?
time.
Sure.
Director Arbor.
While you're on the item, even after 4 years, I learned something. So I kind of knew that, but is it optional for, could the board make a resolution to give delegated authority to ESC, or it's under the local government?
So the delegated authority comes through bylaw. And so the Sewage Commission bylaw, the Water Committee bylaw, those are where the delegated authority occurs. It's conceivable that the board could delegate that authority, certain authority, to the EASC or other bodies. It recently did that through the Recreation Commission bylaw. So it is conceivable.
That's interesting, because I realize that the ESC items consume a huge portion of board agendas quite often, and the municipalities are usually just have glazed eyes as we go through them. So maybe that could be considered in the future. I'm gonna have to think on that.
I will say that there are certain decisions that the board must make. For example, adopting bylaws, varying developments development variance permits. So there are certain decisions the board would have to make, but in other cases, it could be that a committee could have that delegated authority. So I was saying alternate directors, every director here has an alternate, whether it be through municipal appointment or the EA directors make the appointment in writing. We just ask that when your alternate is planning to attend for you, that you let us know so we can make sure that your alternate has the information needed for the meeting, whether it's background materials, agendas, meeting times, that sort of thing. So please let us know when your alternates are planning to attend. And then lastly on this slide, elected officials forums. These are scheduled 2 or 3 or 4 times a year, and they're an opportunity to have discussion and share information about various topics that really have a broad regional application, a valley-wide application. So our intent with these would be that all elected officials are invited, including representatives from the school district, other parties that we have relationships with, and we want to have a broad discussion. So some of the topics we've had in the past include water supply and water stewardship, transportation and transit. And so so the intent there is that we would schedule these meetings throughout the year to focus on some of these valley-wide topics. We're not looking for decisions to be made necessarily at elected officials forums, rather just to advance some discussion. And that would be part of the calendar that Chair Kettler will be looking at shortly. So Jake put together the notes on this slide and I printed them off, and they're quite extensive. I don't think I can't go through them in detail because I can't quite see that small. So I'll very quickly touch on these different bullets. The procedure bylaw number 1, it is your guiding document for how meetings are conducted and how the board conducts itself. I strongly encourage that you read it and have some awareness about it, because it really does lay out all the points that I can mention here. And it's an important piece of legislation. Ideally, most meetings are held very productively and collaboratively, but sometimes there are points of order, sometimes there are points of disagreement, and the procedures are really what allows the board to function in those moments of maybe tension, if you will. Happy to answer any questions you might have about any of those different notes there. I will just say on the 1 point, 2 points. With delegations, this audience, this venue, and our committee meetings is where the public is invited to make presentation to the board and to talk about issues of importance to the community. And so when staff are requested to put an item onto an agenda as a delegation request, we're looking for every opportunity to accommodate that and make that happen, to give you the chance to hear from the public and to allow the public to have that space. We would look to the presentation to be made. We would look to dialogue to be had, questions and answers with the delegation. And then we would ask that any decisions coming out of a delegation not be considered in the moment. It's always good to hear both sides, to understand, what the counter argument might be, or a different perspective on an item. So if you're looking for information on a delegation or looking to get some feedback, please do ask for that, and staff can then come back at a subsequent meeting to provide some research on the topic at hand.
Okay, Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. James, I'm just wondering how staff determine the number of delegations. It strikes me that last term we had a lot of lengthy meetings, and quite often if we have multiple delegations and all sorts of questions from board members, that compounds the length of time that it takes us to get through a meeting. So I'm just wondering if there's any limit to the number of delegations per meeting that staff look at.
So the procedure bylaw does limit the number of delegations at a meeting to 3. And I believe the procedure bylaw indicates 10 minutes per delegation of presentation time. And so there are restrictions on the number of delegations and length of time in the procedure bylaw. And then, of course, the back and forth question and answer is for you as directors to work with. Okay.
Oh, we have another question.
Sure.
Dr. Grant?
Just on delegations, can we keep them to things that are relevant to this board? couple of times last year, we had ones that were electoral service area things and, you know, they go on and on and on and they're really important to the people, but they got nothing to do with me. So I'm just wondering if there's a way we could keep those to the electoral service areas. And the other one that goes on is, sorry, this is really loud, but the other thing that goes on a lot is we get the, you know, they go to Courtney, then they go to Comox, and then they come here, and half the time it's electoral service areas is the only people that haven't heard it already. Could we not send those delegations just to there? We've already heard the presentation, you know, 4 times, right?
Sure. So we do direct delegations to the committee or commission most appropriate. And when it is a rural activity related to a rural service, then certainly that would be at an electoral area services committee. And sometimes we have knowledge of presentations at other council meetings and sometimes we don't. So sometimes the topic could be of a regional nature and we're not necessarily aware that they presented to all 3 municipalities. And by rights, it is a regional topic. So sometimes there would be a duplication for some directors. That said, yeah, we do try to get those topics onto our electoral area service committee.
Come and redo it for the 4th time.
Director Arbor?
To Director Grant's point, I think that links to my comment from earlier. The reason why we saw those delegations, and I think that the 2 you're probably referring to over the last couple of years is probably Saratoga and Stoughton Falls. And I'd like to mention that you did comment on those delegations yourself. So there was some interest on your part as director. But what I would say is this goes back to the notion of delegated authority. The reason why those presentations came to the board is because the ASC had to make those decisions at the board table. So if we had delegated authority on some of those items, and I don't know, like James offered an explanation, but if there was a way to make those final decisions at EASC, you would not see the drama and the delegations show up at the full board.
Director Grieve?
What, and rob us of the exquisite pleasure of watching all of you municipal people squirm. That's one of the great pleasures we have. So I don't think I'll be supporting that.
Thank you. Back to you, James.
Thank you. On notices of motion, that's a phrase that we often hear at tables. A director will want to make a notice of motion about something that they intend to bring forward at a future meeting. Our procedure bylaw doesn't actually speak about notices of motion. What we do encourage is if you have a topic you would like the board to consider or a committee to consider, talk to staff. Come talk to staff and we can have that request put on your letterhead. And if there's any background material you have, we can attach it. By doing that, it serves a couple of purposes. It brings that topic together into one space. It's then presented on an agenda. Directors have full knowledge and awareness. And then a more fulsome discussion or debate can be had at a subsequent meeting. So if we hear directors talking about notice of motion at a meeting, often we'll either intervene and suggest that you come talk to staff or we'll talk to that director afterwards. And then meeting minutes, I think I only said I had 2 bullets, but I've gone into a few different bullets. On meeting minutes, our meeting minutes only record motions. Some jurisdictions will record verbatim minutes. Some will record the dialogue and discussion. Our minutes only record the motions themselves, who moved and seconded, the result of it, those who are opposed. And you'll sometimes hear us ask the board to, or ask the chair to poll the board. So if a decision looks like it might not be a clear majority in favor or opposed, we have the opportunity to poll the board and to count the votes, and then we'll go through a roll call of all the directors and ask for your decision in favor or opposed. And on that, by being present at the meeting, you must vote one way or the other. If you cannot abstain from a vote, and if you don't vote, you're deemed to be voting in favor. So just some of the procedures that we do follow. On agenda distribution, we aim to get the agendas out on the Thursday or Friday before the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday meetings. So doing the best we can to do that. It is sometimes late on Friday, but we know that you've got busy schedules and we're trying our best to get those out early. All the agendas are available on our website. You'll have security certificates on your devices to access the in-camera materials. And then lastly, on this slide on board correspondence, there's a board policy that directs any correspondence coming to the chair or the board. We post online. It's on a page that you have access to. Where it's asking for a particular action related to a service, then staff may prepare a report that responds and introduces it to the board. Where it's more of information not related to services, it'll be provided to you on that board correspondence page. If you have action you would like to take from that correspondence, again, please talk to staff and we can work to provide a response or bring that material to a board agenda or committee agenda, again, on your letterhead with a requested action of sorts. So, one of the really unique and interesting and sometimes aggravating features of regional districts is the voting structure. And it can be challenging to work with. It's very prescriptive in the legislation, and you'll see in this slide there's reference to all sorts of sections of the Local Government Act. So we do have a pretty good guideline to follow in the sense that it's in the legislation, but it's not always intuitive, and it can be sometimes be aggravating in the sense that maybe it doesn't make sense why a certain way of voting is applied to a certain decision. This slide does a good job to capture the 5 types of voting at the Comox Valley Regional District. The first 3 and 4 types would apply to all regional districts across the province. Part of the 4th and the 5th are unique to the regional district based on the legislation that we have either adopted or the province has put in place specific to ourselves. I don't think I'll go through the slide in detail. It's interesting, but I could be here for a while trying to explain it all. So if you have questions during meetings, why we're voting a certain way, Lisa, Jake, myself, we can provide that explanation. Can't provide the rationale for why the legislation is the way it is all the time, but can certainly speak to the way it's applied. The voting structure is based on population. This table represents the population of all the jurisdictions and then the number of votes assigned to each jurisdiction when a weighted vote is applied. Generally speaking, weighted votes are applied when there are financial decisions to be made. But you can see there that the weighted votes are distributed as such. And I think that, Russell, you've distributed this PowerPoint to the directors. So if you want to look more closely at the voting structure, it is there. And lastly, the upcoming meeting schedule for the rest of this year and into January, pending the discussion with Chair Kettler. So you can see there's a number of meetings on the calendar, lots of orientation for the board, for the solid waste board, hospital board, and then into the individual services. Some of our days will be a bit longer, but we'll try to make sure that our business is focused and the orientation is relevant. Yeah, Russell, I don't know if you want to note any points.
Yeah, I was just going to point out the December 1st meeting of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District. If you are not a municipal director on the regional hospital board, by all means, please attend, because it is Eli Mina talking about governance, not specific to hospital, but general for regional districts and local governments. So if you're not a member of the hospital board, you're more than willing to still attend that meeting if you wish to take that on, and that will be provided through Zoom, correct, James? Yeah. Whereas the November 24th Comox Strathcona Waste Management orientation is really specific to the service itself.
That's it. Any questions or discussion?
It looks like we're all good for now.
No, okay.
Thank you, James. So we're on receipt of the orientation. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. So next we have the homelessness and support service funding allocation. Arbor and Service at Grant. Thank you. Oh, Director Moran, go ahead.
I'm going to step out of this one just because it does bring up the Transition Society that I am a casual employee of, and I just want to, I'd rather step out. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for letting us know.
And Madam Chair, I'll ask Lana Mullally, General Manager of Planning and Development Services, to come forward and just outline the background to the report and the recommendation.
Thank you, Russell. Through Madam Chair to the directors, this report is in front of you tonight to recommend that you allocate $75,000 from the Homelessness and Support Service to the Comox Valley Transition Society in order for the society to undertake renovation of 685 Cliff Avenue to enable creation of a 33-bed emergency shelter. So a little bit of background on this one. I guess CBTS, in working with the City of Courtenay, put forward an application to BC Housing for approval for an emergency shelter, and that request was granted. CBTS has been working closely with the city staff to secure or identify what are the improvements required in order to enable this use, and have arrived at a dollar amount of approximately $75,000 to undertake the renovations. You approved a budget earlier this year, earlier in 2022, to allocate funds within an overall requisition that you set this year of $350,000. This money is available and sitting within your approved, or pardon me, within your adopted budget. So no change to the budget is required, rather just a decision point on whether or not to allocate currently unallocated funds in that service to this use. Thank you very much.
Dr. Arbor?
Yeah, thanks. The letter references approve recommendations, and there were 3 of them. And when they said approve, I think it's this board who approved it. And can we have an update on the other 2? I'm in favor of the 75,000, but it'd be nice to know if we have released the funds for the other ones as well, for the Watchie Centers, 40 unit, and Habitat for Humanity. Is that tracking well?
Through Madam Chair to the directors, yes, those monies have all been released. Additionally, in July, the board passed a resolution to allocate $30,000 towards the cost of the coalition coordinator and $5,000 toward peer honoraria, and those funds have also been released.
Oops, sorry. Next we have, I think it was actually Director Hillian, if you could put your light back on. Thanks. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to staff for the report. I'm just wanting to clarify what the relationship is between this funding and the $91,000 that was set aside back in, I think it was March, in relation to previous services that had been provided by the Transition Society. And at that time, I believe that funding was set aside pending determination of whether those expenditures were eligible under the Strengthening Communities Grant. So 2 questions really. What's the relationship between the 2 amounts? And has there been a determination in relation to that $91,000?
Through Madam Chair to the directors. So Director Hillian is referring to $91,000, as he said, from the Strengthening Communities Services Grant. The long and the short of it is that back in the fall of 2021, CPTS identified a shortfall in their operating costs for the much needed Connect drop-in program that's operated out of the city-owned property at Cliff. And so the board opted to extend funding from this this service, sort of in principle, in the amount of $91,000. In order to pay that request, we used money from the Strengthening Community Services Grant. We held on, or we suggested to you that you hold sort of money in this back pocket in the event that the grant funder, UBCM, deemed that expenditure to be ineligible per the terms of the grant. So as you know, the City of Courtenay is now the administrator of the grant and is having those conversations with UBCM about what's eligible, what is ineligible. In my experience working with UBCM, it's at the time of final reporting that you then receive confirmation for what has been eligible, what is deemed ineligible. I understand that the city has secured an extension to that grant, which is fantastic, which will enable more of the good work that these organizations do to unfold. And my suggestion would be that we will have that final confirmation from UBCM when the final reporting is submitted. So in respect to the relationship between the 75K and the 91K, there is no relationship. These are not overlapping dollars.
And thanks very much for clarifying that. And just to follow up, how much is left in this particular service for 2020 or 2022 rather?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I keep turning that off.
No, it's doing it automatically. I'm
Oh,
not quite
okay.
sure. We haven't sorted all the bugs out with that.
Great. So through Madam Chair to the directors, there is currently 30,000 remaining unallocated in the 2022 adopted budget.
And that's regardless of the 91.
Irrespective of the 91. Yeah.
Director McCullum.
Yeah, I think all of my questions were asked and answered there, so that was helpful. So and just to clarify on the $91,000 that we it sounds basically like we've set it aside in the event that those funds will not be covered through the UBCM grant. And then at that time, I guess that would be held in the reserve, or would that come back in a future budget for granting? How will that come back around?
Through Madam Chair to the directors, I'd certainly encourage Kevin Duville to jump in here if I get this wrong, but our suggestion to you would be that you hold that money until we get the confirmation from UBCM, the grant funder, or City of Courtenay is suitably satisfied that that is an eligible expense before spending those dollars. So when we have unallocated dollars in this service, we typically will recommend to you through the budget planning process that you carry forward the dollars into the next year. And so I expect that that's what we'll be recommending to you when we come in January. I'm getting the nod from Kevin. Yes.
Sorry, one last question. My mic is also going off. So who is the responsibility left with to address that 91,000? Would that be the Transition Society, the City of Courtenay, or is it with our service that goes back and closes the loop of where the funding's coming from?
Through Madam Chair to the directors, decisions in this service are always yours. So this is a service that is the CVRD service. You are under no obligation to allocate the funds to any one organization. You could, and we'll talk to you a little bit about this when the budget comes forward, but that decision will rest with you as the board.
Sorry,
It's doing it.
I know it is. I just want to clarify that we don't have to, as directors, remember to close the loop on this, and that there's a mechanism in which either staff are speaking to staff at the Transition Society or at the city. And then once that's clarified, that yes, of course, it would come back here for the ultimate decision, but I just want to understand what the mechanism is for knowing that.
Yep, no, for sure it is. And our finance team will monitor matters such as this, and there'll be a reminder. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I actually do have another question on this. And I'm not sure if you can answer, Lana, maybe the City of Courtenay directors can. So initially with the Strengthening Communities grant, the Transition Society were looking for a separate building to host this same service. So with the $75,000 that is going to the upgrades of the building, is that sufficient to do all the upgrades necessary that it can have the overnight service that it was looking for originally with the grant, or is there still a desire to move at some point? Director Helene?
Thanks, Chair. I believe it's detailed in the in the report, the additional services that are provided. I don't think there's any active search on for a different location right now. Long term, I think the city would be happy if the service was provided somewhere else, but I don't believe there's anything in the works in that regard right now.
Okay, and the $75,000 does cover the cost of what is needed right now to provide that service?
I believe that's what's outlined in the report, but there may be other expenses that are being covered under the actual grant itself.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, any other questions? I don't see any. Alana, do you want to continue or is that it? Okay. So we are on receipt. All in favor of receipt? Any opposed? That's carried. The recommendation moved by Hillian, seconded by Arbor. And that's that we allocate the $75,000. And is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. And we're on to item 4, which is the revenue anticipation bylaw. Moved by Grant, seconded by Cole Hamilton. Thank you, and I'll pass it to staff.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just ask Kevin Duval to come forward and explain this report and the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Russell. Through the chair to directors, good afternoon. So the report in front of you today with respect to the revenue anticipation is to seek the approval for the board to move forward with the 4 readings and adoption of our annual revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw. This is part of our annual fiscal oversight, or specifically cash flow management undertakings within finance. Section 404 of the Local Government Act empowers regional district boards to adopt such bylaws. And this is largely due to the fact that as regional districts, the majority of our revenues, specifically property taxation through acquisition, aren't received until August of every calendar year. And therefore, this is part of the tools in our toolkit, or a mechanism that it would allow us to borrow if necessary to ensure that we can continue to move forward with our lawful expenditures as approved under our annual financial plans. Typically, these funds are borrowed through one of 2 primary sources, either the Municipal Finance Authority or our local lender, the Royal Bank of Canada. As I mentioned, this really allows us to kind of meet those ongoing operational needs, and specifically to also help cash flow any planned capital activities through the year until, as I said, that taxation is received, and only after we've exhausted all of the other funding that may be available for any such projects or initiatives. So that would include reserve contributions, debt that may have been approved to support a project, etc. So looking forward to 2023, again, just given the nature of a number of the activities that we have slated, and certainly given the large infrastructure projects that we are continuing to look at, such as sewer conveyance, moving forward with the CEL2 and the solid waste service, etc. We are recommending to remain at the $25 million level as we have been for the past number of years. And as I said, we'll only utilize this funding if we feel we need to, although over the past 7 years, as much as we have put forward such bylaws in the past, we haven't actually had to use them at that point, given, again, we are always very fiscally prudent when looking at our cash flows and ensuring that, we're always looking at making sure we can accommodate those needs with our existing framework. So I'll leave it at that and certainly welcome any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions? All right. So we're on receipt. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Hillian moves the recommendation, seconded by McCullum. Any further discussion? It's the approval of the revenue anticipation bylaw for the 2023 fiscal year. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're on to item. How are you guys doing? Do you want to have a break or continue? Okay, we will continue on. So next we have the board code of conduct policy review and update. Oh, actually, Sorry, before we move that, I think we were going to refer this to the next.
Madam
meeting.
Chair, I'd ask the board just make a motion to refer this to the next meeting. Jake Martins is the author of the report and is unavailable tonight, but we'll provide you an introduction and the background on it at the next meeting.
I don't know who to pick for the second. Grant and Cole Hamilton, and all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so that takes us to bylaws and resolutions. We have the bylaw number 736, revenue anticipation bylaw for first and second reading. Grant and Arbor, thank you. And it's the full board, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Grant and Grieve have moved third. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So we're on to new business. Appointments to the 2023 Vancouver Island Regional Library Board. Grieve and McCollum, thank you. So now we have a discussion about who we would like to appoint. Anybody throwing some names out there? Anyone?
Yes, it is. The municipalities appoint their own members to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board, so it's an opportunity for the electoral area directors to have representation.
Okay. Director Arbor, do you let your name stand? Okay. And an alternate? Okay. And Director Grieve, do you let your name stand? Sure. Thank you. So yeah, we're still on receipt. So all in, Director Hillian, go ahead.
I just wondered if there were any other area directors that were interested, just to give Director Hardy the opportunity to express interest if he does have any.
I think he's avoiding eye contact, so. So we do have a member and an alternate member, and we're on receipt. So all in favor of receipt? And anyone opposed? That's carried. And so the recommendation can be made with those appointments. Moved by Grant, seconded by Cole Hamilton, with Director Arbor as member and Director Grieve as alternate member to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, now there's the appointment to the North Island 9/11 Board of Directors. Moved by Grant, seconded by Cole Hamilton. Thank you. And discussion? Director Hillian?
Yes, I'm just wondering, Chair, is it possible to nominate alternate directors who aren't actually here tonight? Because if so, I would nominate Director Swift to continue on.
I'll have to turn to staff for advice on that.
It would be advantageous to appoint it tonight. That I believe there's nothing preventing an alternate director serving on this board. I guess, yeah, if you want to do that and you want to check for that member, by all means, delay it for a week. We can, the 911 board can live with that delay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll nominate alternate director Swift, unless there's somebody else here at the table who wants to do it.
Okay, yeah, she would have to let her name stand, and so we'll have to come back to this at another meeting and check with her. Are we still on receipt? Yes, we are. So I'll just ask for a receipt. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, and we're okay. Grieve and Cole Hamilton, thank you. To the next regular meeting. All right, all in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, just to confirm, that doesn't need to be in the resolution, but we would like your CAO to confirm with Director Swift whether she would be willing to sit. Yep.
Okay, we give in that direction. Great. Director Arbor,
I was going to delegate it to you.
go ahead.
I'm on to the next item. Is that okay? I think we voted.
Yes, we voted. Yeah, we're on.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend the appointments to the MFA of as member.
We need receipt.
Or receipt, move receipt.
Okay, Director Arbor and McCollum, go ahead.
Thank you. I was going to propose Director McCollum, who's done a great job, and I forget who the alternate member was, but I think Dr. Kirk could be a good choice for alternate if he's got the interest. Oh, was it you? It was you? Oh, is you still interested? Director Grieve, McCollum and Grieve, keep the team.
Okay, do I have a second for those?
Second.
Okay. And do you both let your name stand for that? All right. So we are in receipt, all in favor of receipt. And somebody wants to move that recommendation with those appointments? Sorry, Grant and Cole Hamilton, thank you. So that is that we appoint member McCollum and alternate member Grieve to the Municipal Finance Authority. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. We have termination by Arbor. Seconded by Grieve. All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone.
There is dinner here.
Oh, and there's dinner.
Chinese food.